Hey guys, thank you for joining us for another Men's Bible Brief. If you can, join us on Wednesday mornings. The information is on the screen. If not, we got you covered on YouTube right here. Well, let's go ahead and join the brief in progress. God bless you. Hey fellas, thank you for joining us for another Men's Bible Brief. And as you know, every first Wednesday is our open mic. And so today is open mic. And boy, we had a lot of questions. Don't know if we're going to get to all of them, but we'll get to as many as we can. And so let me just kind of do two quick preliminaries first. Let me give you the hump day food for thought. And here it is. When thinking about life, remember this: no amount of guilt can solve the past, and no amount of anxiety can change the future. That's a good word. At the end of the day, guys, you got to focus, strategize, and keep it moving. I think that's a good word for all of us. Also, too, just want to remind you guys, we are going to be launching our men's group, Men with Purpose, and we'll be doing this from time to time throughout the year, where we'll launch 2 or 3 sessions with men in which we will get in groups and just go a little bit deeper. We do great stuff with the Men's Bible Brief. We're going to continue to post things here on our YouTube channel about the Bible Brief. But some of you guys, need to build some relationships with some other brothers. We were never meant to walk alone. And so we're all soldiers, but soldiers are more able and apt to fight when we fight together as a unit. And so I just want to encourage you guys. There's the flyer on your screen. There's a QR code there. Hit that, check it out. We will try to adjust the group to your schedule. There's some questions that you would fill out to see if it fits your schedule. But you're going to enjoy this. I had a chance to share and train with some of the leaders, and they're really pumped about this curriculum with Tim Brown, The Making of a Man. Really think you're going to like it. So just want to encourage you to do that and check it out. And so let's go ahead and jump into our open mic questions. We had a number of questions, and of course the first question was about politics and the big beautiful bill. And basically what the question was about is that this bill is cutting out many of the needed services that many African Americans have depended upon, as well as those who are impoverished around the world. And basically the person asking the question wanted to know my opinion. And yes, that is true. Like we do know now that many of the services that have been cut are actually causing people to suffer and even lose their lives over in other parts of the world, where in the past we were actually saving lives. So anybody who puts that out there, I know they'll call it false news, but when you're dealing with cultic mentality, people don't want to see the truth on both sides. And that's fine. And that's just kind of where we are. But the truth is, all the cuts that have taken place really has not put a dent in the budget. And that's what's really the problem with the bill. The problem is Republicans pride themselves in being fiscally conservative. That is, they watch the dollars, they watch the purse strings, they don't want to overspend, they don't want to overtax, which is perfectly fine. I can agree with a lot of those things. The problem is this bill is projected to add somewhere for $3+ trillion of debt, which will basically make the debt actually greater than what we take in as an economy. And so we'll be in a real deep place of deficit spending. And just by word of just analysis, guys, until you address Medicare, healthcare, Social Security, and military spending, you're just dealing with the change in your car ashtray when you make cuts to government. So all the cuts you see that Doge has done, all these cuts, sadly, a lot of people lost their jobs, and it's really a travesty to see all that. The truth is those cuts barely made a dent. It's like removing the change out of the ashtray in your car. Yeah, you really don't depend on that. That's really what happened with all the Doge cuts. Until you hit those 4 areas that I just talked about, healthcare, Medicaid, Social Security, and military spending, you're not going to make a dent in the debt. And there are a number of Republicans that are standing up against this. We'll see how long this lasts. Many times Trump is good at appeasing even his enemies within the Republican Party. We'll see. But it really doesn't do anything to appease it. And really, if Democrats are guilty of taxing people to death, Republicans now, and sadly, this new Republicanism is guilty of just spending debt and just adding debt to future generations. So that's kind of where we are. That is the political reality. So it was a great question. Question number 2, are the Ethiopian Bible, what is my opinion of the Ethiopian Bible and Ethiopian Christians? And this was a great question. And if you've been in Christianity long enough, you'll know that there are other segments of Christianity or branches of Christianity that don't really practice the faith the way we Protestants are. If you're in America, probably the dominant expression of Christianity is called Protestant Christianity, which of course is a result of the Reformation that took place under Martin Luther. In terms of numbers, 51% of all Christians are Catholic, about 34% are Protestant Christians, and about 10 to 11% are what are called Orthodox Christians. Orthodox Christians are not necessarily Catholic, but if you were to go into an Orthodox church, you would see a lot of resemblance of Catholic practices, but they would emphatically say we're not Catholic. But Orthodox is what they are. They really try to retain how the early church understood the New Testament documents, and they try to keep those practices in place. And the Ethiopian church tends to be an Orthodox church. It's one of the few countries that has remained Christian the longest. It became Christian about 3rd or 4th century, and it's been a Christian country pretty much ever since. Even when Muhammad sought to conquer it, he was so impressed that he actually allowed it to stand as a country. And so the Ethiopian Bible has about 88 books. 88 books. Our Bible, the Protestant Bible, has 66 books. Catholic Bible, by comparison, has 73 books. And really the differences between the 66, the 73, and the 88 has to do with a collection of books called the Apocrypha. These books tend to be books between the ending of the Old Testament, Malachi, and the beginning of the New Testament, which is Matthew. And that period represents about 400 years of history. And though the Protestants see those books and we do not consider them inspired, they are very good history books, and for the most part forms the backdrop for even understanding the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And so it's very valuable materials. Catholics say no, they're not just history books. They are inspired, so they take those books to be inspired. Ethiopian Bible has those books, and they've even added some more books from that period. I'm not sure if they've added books after the New Testament period. That part I can't verify, but you can do your own research and discover that. But this was a great question. I shouldn't say most, but a number of historians believe that they do believe in Jesus the same way as Protestants do. Their language may be a little bit different as to how they describe it, but their beliefs are very, very similar to Protestant Christians, but their practices are definitely different than Protestant Christians or even some Catholic Christians. So just a great question. Question number 3, and this came from one of the brothers that I had recommended a book, and it's a great book, and I'll put a post up. It's called Swing Low. It's actually a 2-part volume. Swing Low by Walter Strickland. It's a church history piece, and he really liked the book, and he raised the question about colorblind, and Walter Strickland does make mention of colorblind, and he just had a question about it, and I know that's popular, but the question really is colorblind a Christian or a biblical term? And I argue that it is not. Colorblind means that, hey, I don't see race, I don't see color, I don't see culture, I don't see ethnicity, I just see a human being. The problem with that is, particularly as it has been applied in America, what people mean by that is, yes, I don't see your culture, I don't see your race, as long as the dominant culture is a white culture, which is where we get white supremacy. And that's just not how the scriptures present it. God does not erase our culture. He erases our sin. He deals with our sin. The power of the gospel is not to eradicate everyone's culture so that we can be reconciled. But in spite of our cultural differences and our ethnic differences, that we can still be unified. That's why you have in Acts 8, you have the conversion of the Ethiopian eunuch. In Acts 10, you have the conversion of the centurion. as well, because now you see the move of Gentiles being a part of the church, which was unheard of. So you got Jew and Gentile being reconciled, which is really, in a sense, a fulfillment of Genesis 12, the promise made to Abraham: through you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. It doesn't say all the families of the earth shall be Jewish. That's not what it says. No, I'm going to bless this Abrahamic, Jewish, Hebraic family, but at the same time, I'm going to bring in all other ethnic and culturally different families to be a part of this new community. And so that's really what the question was. Swing Low by Walter Street. It's a great 2-volume read. You may want to check it out. Next question is America under judgment? And this one I'm a little bit careful to answer, because usually that question comes out of this idea that somehow America is the new Israel. And so in the way that God deals with Israel in the Old Testament, that somehow America is Israel's New Testament version. And so just as God judged Israel for forsaking the covenant with him in the Old Testament, some would say, well, God is judging America because she has forsaken some kind of constitution or covenant he had with God. And that's really a source of white nationalism, which is completely unbiblical. Jesus never referred to that. So I would say the world is under judgment because of the cross. So every nation is under judgment because the change factor is Christ. Whether or not a person comes to Christ, whether or not a nation acknowledges Christ and wants to be Christian, that's really what it comes down to. Really more on the individual level, communal level, where individuals come to Christ and come together as a part of the new community. So I'm a little bit careful in how we parse that. I don't see America as somehow the new Israel. And some people parse it like that, and that's really not even close to scripture or biblical or historical Christianity. No, we're all a part of a new community. There's the universal body of Christ. He doesn't choose one nation over another. No, he chooses people from all nations, and therefore we supersede or we transcend our national identities or our national commitments. And so that's how I would answer that question. And this last question has to do with celebrity pastors in general. What are my thoughts about celebrity pastors? I'm not going to be so dogmatic to say that God could never use, mega churches or large pastors or celebrity pastors. But I did raise what I think is the problem and why we're seeing some of the scandals around some of the celebrity pastors. And as one podcaster, I think, have said so well, that this whole culture of celebrity pastors has even transferred into the political culture, that there's almost a loyalty to politicians in a way there's loyalty to the celebrity pastors, almost in a cult feel. And I think there's a reality to that. I think the problem is, if I had to say, at least in the independent churches that are not denominationally structured, and there are problems with denominational churches as with any church, whether it's Presbyterian, Lutheranism, or Methodism, but particularly in the independent churches where mega pastors tend to rise. That's usually tends to be the kind of churches that grow the fastest and have this one person that has an influence maybe over 100,000 followers or even 200,000 followers. The problem is, as one of my professors said so eloquently, is that as pastors of smaller churches like myself, we usually have individuals that we submit to. The question is, when you become really a large-scale global phenomenon as a pastor, who speaks into your life? And I think that is the problem. Who is the one that holds you accountable? Who is the one that can say to you, you know what, I know you have all this influence over all these people and you have these millions of dollars and millions of followers who follow you, but when you're out of line, who has the right to sit you down? Who has the right to challenge you? And I think that is the problem. It's an unaccounted for structure, at least in some of the denominational structures. If you get a church, and there are large churches in these denominational structures, whether Presbyterian or Methodism, there's some very large churches. But the structure can remove a pastor. They can change pastors. They can speak to pastors. But when you're an independent body and you're a Christian body, nothing wrong with that. the question becomes, when you're at the top of the ladder and only God speaks to you, how do you know if you have blinders on? How do you know for sure it's truly of God? Who checks you on that? Who holds you accountable? And for me, I think that's the fundamental problem. And that's what we see even today in the political sphere. There's a sense that some of these political leaders in this particular administration sees themselves as unaccountable. We pretty much have the freedom to do whatever we want. And I'm not just picking on this administration. I think to some extent, previous administrations, Democrat and Republican, have done this, that we're unaccountable, we're in power, we can do whatever we want. And that is the problem. So that would be my sticking point with celebrity pastors. Definitely not saying that God can't use large churches. He surely is. The problem is you can raise up a celebrity pastor. There can be skeletons in their closet. But because you see the results, the common statement would be, but God's using him mightily. So God must be in it. And you just ignore the wrong in their lives, or you ignore the scandal, or you put it on the back burner, or you hide it. The Catholic Church has been guilty of this. The Protestant Church has definitely been guilty of this. Many churches have been guilty of this. When you look at the influence, look at the impact they're having. Well, we can excuse the scandal. That's the problem. And I definitely believe we're in a time when God is calling us out to be a people of integrity. Great questions, great discussion. If you have comments, would love to hear about them. Glad that you can join us for this brief. Until we come together again next week, I'll be looking for you for our next Bible brief as we continue in this journey as men who follow God with purpose. God bless you and may God keep you. I'll see you in the next brief. Take care.